food got better. They took more pride in their food. So now we're going to talk about food. Our first recipe is chicken cacciatore, nutritionals and cost. Jerry, it's time for you to start helping me here.
I look at it here, I could eliminate or at least take the sodium and cut that in half. And that now to help with your cost, we could take that 4-ounce piece of chicken and bring it down to 3, and then you would add more vegetables to it and so forth. That would help with the cost. If you can get your hands on commodities, I looked at the list. Chicken is on that list. Whole wheat flour instead of the all-purpose flour. Vegetable oil, diced tomatoes, and that would help with your cost also.
And there's tomato sauce and paste, sometimes available through the commodities. You can substitute that for the diced tomatoes. And also, I would consider cutting the chicken back and using canned beans, dried beans, canned beans like pinto or kidney beans with that tomato product and vegetables. It'll look nice and taste good, or dry beans like the Great Northern. I wouldn't do navy necessarily, possibly pintos. Even maybe lentils would be kind of cool in this recipe, and that would reduce the cost. There's our raw ingredients. We're using whole wheat flour because it's just a little better for people. The more whole grain you feed these kids, the better off they're going to be. And there's Jerry seasoning the chicken, oiling it, putting some flour on it, and getting it into the FWE retherm cabinet. The nice thing about this product, this cabinet, is that it goes up to there's a lot of nice things about it. It goes up to 350 degrees, but you can set it with 2 temperature settings, so you can actually cook it at one temperature, a higher temperature, and hold it at a lower temperature without ever taking the food out of the retherm. Another nice thing about this is that it holds 18 full sheet pans 3 inches apart and doesn't have to be under an exhaust hood. Can get it on wheels, and so it's really easy to clean. And once the food goes into this with the timer that you can set, you don't have to babysit the food, and it gives you more labor time to pay attention to other things in that cafeteria. So Jerry's taking it out after it's nice and brown, and you're not going to see that's coming out of the retherm. You can get food this brown. And then we're putting all the rest of the ingredients onto the same sheet pan, so we're not dirtying another sheet pan, saving on water and soap, getting it back in the retherm to finish cooking it, and then getting it over into the FWE Climate IQ. This holding cabinet goes up to 190 degrees, and the other nice option with this is that it holds water, and so you can keep the food moist, and it has a moisture setting. So why I like this is that the last kids coming through your line, the food is going to be as fresh and as moist as when you first started. And there's our finished product. Jerry, is a kid going to eat that? We've had some questions about, is this really kid-friendly food?
Well, when I look at it, and you see the nice red of the tomatoes and the green of the green peppers, you could even serve as a side raw or cooked spinach, rice, pasta, couscous. If you look how nice this looks and moist, the students will stop and take a look at it, and they will try it.
Okay, thanks. And
we have a couple.
Oh.
We have a couple questions, Greg.
Okay.
Can you explain how to decrease the sodium in this recipe?
Well, to me, you can just simply cut it back, but the key to that is that you have to get the chicken nice and brown. And with browned chicken skin, everyone in the world loves that flavor. And if it's nice and browned, you can cut the salt back. It's as easy as that. And what I would do is I always track plate waste. Are the kids eating the food? And I would use a scale, so actually weigh the food, weigh the plates as they come back, or weigh the garbage can at the end of the day, to track how much the kids are eating. And as you lower the salt, I would take the salt recipe down like 25%, and then First, I would leave it the same, leave it the way it is, and track plate waste, and that would reduce the salt 20% or 25% and bring it down as far as you can until you start to see the plate waste going up. Then you know you've taken too much salt out of that dish. Why I use a scale in monitoring plate waste is I know it's a little bit of a hassle, but if you just do it with your eyes, sometimes you miss something, sometimes you're busy, sometimes you're simply wrong. That's why I always use a scale on plate waste.
Great, thanks. The next question. How do I train my staff to improve their knife skills and reduce prep time?
You know, I know some people have chopping equipment in their kitchens. And so they don't have to improve their knife skills because they put everything in a machine. Terry, at the Chicago Public Schools, how many kitchens had, Robocoot type equipment?
Well, we had 600 schools. I got to see at least 400, 450 in the 11 years. I would say at the max we had 24 kitchens that had that type of equipment.
And so the rest of those kitchens, if there was knife work to be done, they used a knife. And there's a bunch of ways that you can improve knife skills. My favorite way is to give people a certain amount of vegetables and start a log and track how long it takes them to chop 50 pounds of carrots, for example, or a case of red peppers, and then time them, and provided you're really making sure that they're being safe, push them to chop that case of peppers, for example, faster and faster and faster. Another way, because it's really practice. At the end of the day, it's practice, Colleen, with chopping vegetables faster. But another way is a lot of chef parents want to educate the kids about food, and they're focused on getting into the classrooms and teaching kids about food. I would also ask them to come into the cafeteria and work with your staff on their knife skills. They'd be glad to give the chefs a few minutes. I mean, they're already in the school. They're talking about food with the kids. Get them in that kitchen regularly, once a month, something like that. So our next recipe is Creole Spaghetti. Jerry?
Well, same thing. When I looked there, we could cut the sodium in half or even eliminate it. Cost-wise, commodities, I've seen the ground beef on the list, your diced tomatoes again, and puree and paste. Spaghetti, they have regular spaghetti and whole wheat spaghetti, and even the cheese, a lot of times you can get your hands on commodity.
And again, you could fold into this dried beans or canned beans, which are almost always available through the commodity program. What about this crazy idea of making this a vegetarian meal?
Well, I would eliminate the 14 pounds of ground beef and replace it with vegetable. You'd still call it Creole spaghetti, but a lot of times we're looking for meatless entrees, especially if you're serving 2 entrees. We used to have one would always be, each day would be meatless, and this would be a perfect recipe to do it.
And the spaghetti, I think all kids like spaghetti almost any way. What's your experience in the schools?
When we had spaghetti with meatballs or meatless, we never had a problem selling it because the kids just loved spaghetti.
Okay. And there's our raw ingredients. And we're putting meat into a hotel pan, getting it into that FWE retherm oven at 350 till it's cooked all the way. Getting all the rest of the ingredients into that same pan except the pasta, which we cook separately, and the cheese. Finishing it off in the retherm, and then popping it into the Climate IQ to hold it warm with the correct steam setting to keep it moist for the entire service. And then when it's time to serve it, pulling it out, tossing it with the cheese, and mixing in the spaghetti. And there we have it, garnished with a little bit of parsley and cheese. What other garnishes could we use in this dish, Jerry? And why would we garnish the food anyway?
Well, the reason we garnish it, I've seen it in the schools, in elementary and high schools. If the plate looks nice, like if you look at this place, it looks moist and so forth, the students will stop, and then that gives you a second or two to have them try it, or to, even give them a little taste. Garnish could be from your school garden, herbs, spinach. This time of year, I said spinach, asparagus. Asparagus is coming up.
Okay, thanks.